very interesting and informative presentations that we were privileged to listen to, and I think you can all agree that we've learned a lot from that. So I think the next step is to try and carry on to get gathering more information. Unfortunately, as you heard, Professor Wilna Oliver Wagatron can't be with us to field any questions, but we have two excellent speakers here who will be very happy and keen to answer some of your questions. The first question that appears on the screen here is, do we get any resistance towards GMO soya in South Africa? And are there any organic certified soya available in South Africa? I've consulted with my two colleagues here, and they would prefer that if I had to try and have a go at this one. So I'm quite willing to do that. The first question is that I think it's difficult to generalize in terms of what people's perceptions are of GMO in particular. But my experience has been that there are certain markets that are demanding non-GMO soya for a specific marketing type function. And the cost of non-GMO soyas in South Africa is significantly higher than GMO soybeans. So it has to be sold into a market that can absorb those higher prices. So as with anything, there definitely is a market for non-GMO soyas in South Africa. We probably don't, or we don't produce enough in the country for our own consumption, and probably one of the main reasons for that is it's so much more difficult to produce than GMO soyas. So yes, definitely a place for non-GMO, but it's not because of consumer resistance, in my opinion. From an organic point of view, we're all very aware how difficult it is to get something certified as organic in South Africa. And to my knowledge, there is no organic certified soya that's being sold in South Africa. And if it is, I'd be surprised if it has gone through the right verification processes. But that is just in a personal opinion. Good. Are there any more questions? Okay, can I take the liberty then of trying one or two, if you don't mind? Professor, to you, from a dehulling point of view, I see that's not really in your process much, but certainly I know in full fat for animal feeding, sometimes dehulling is an important part of the process to reduce the fiber levels. In the human nutrition side, is that probably not necessary, or how are you a big proponent of dehulling or not?
It depends on the product that we produce. So if you're looking, for example, the World Feeding Program, and you're looking at the Super Cereal Plus product that's been formulated there by the World Feeding Program, for adults, you actually use a hulled product, soy as is, complete. Where if you go and you make the cereal plus for kids, you have to dehull. So it depends on what kind of final formulation you need, what kind of final nutritional profile you will have. But in most of the applications where we start to do further processing, where, for example, we go for a meat analog or so, you will dehull the process. So there the bean will be dehulled first. Second processing will most of the time will be then defatting, either using the mechanical defatting or a chemical defatting, and then using the soy either concentrate and isolates to actually then extrude that and make then a meat analog product. So for those, we use also dehulled soybeans.
Okay. If you don't mind me, just on the same trend, the isolates and soy protein concentrates are, to my knowledge, not produced in South Africa. They're all imported. There's no shortcut from an extrusion point of view to come to a similar type of product, or will we need to put up that type of processing? I don't think we've got the economies of scale to do it.
That is true. So if you look at the traditional development worldwide in a meat analog environment, it has been traditionally being used on using concentrate and isolates. And the problem that we're sitting with in South Africa is we don't have those processing facilities. The processing facilities that we have in the region are, first of all, mechanical pressing, where we press out the oil, and then chemical solvent plants. So there's quite a number of chemical solvent plants in the region that supply also then what we call white flakes, which is also a defatted meal. So we've therefore started to work on the research and development side and say, but can't we add value to these products and then create meat analogs by doing that? And that has been quite a number of development that we've done for the last few years on actually exactly that. So there are quite a number of products that we've now developed where we actually use then defatted defatted pressed products, or some of those are chemically defatted but with local technology that is available with the defatting plants in the region. Some products still you need to add in a little bit of isolates just to make a more appealing product, around 10 or 15% of that. But our aim on the research and development has been mainly to say how can we beneficiate the local produce and the local processed meals and products around here. And I think we've been quite successful in achieving that. And by doing that, I think looking into Africa, we have to go that route, because the economies of scale of setting up concentrate plants and isolate plants is not really going to happen. So those products are traditionally being imported. And if we are not forcing ourselves to go to beneficiate our local produce, then that market will remain untapped for us, and it will actually just come in from abroad. And then we will, once again, as I mentioned, the economies will bleed because the money will flow outside. So that is why we focus a lot on that development, and we've been quite successful in developing some products around that.
Excellent response, thank you. The next question, there is a question coming. What is the potential of soybean uptake in human consumption markets in South Africa? Are there other international markets we can learn from? I think, Professor, that's your
yes, thank you.
expertise.
I think there's never been a more golden moment than now to actually push for a higher consumption of soybean as being part of a plant protein group that can beneficiate the diets of South Africans at an affordable price. But we really need, as I highlighted and as Professor Oldewagen also highlighted, we need good consumer education about that, because consumers are not aware, or they don't know actually how to cook the product. They don't have good recipes of how to prepare it. And so there is really the opportunity to actually do that. And then if we look at what are the international examples, I think Professor Oldewagen showed us the variety of where food products are being used with fresh edamame beans in products that is available on the shelf or in the freezer. At this stage, I only know of one type, which is the frozen edamame bean that is available throughout the year, and then sometimes you are able to buy a fresh packet, but it's not used in product innovation at a large scale yet. And it's something that I think if we have good consumer education about it, pushed by this whole Eat Lancet report and the UN summit that will take place next week, this is all supportive and speaking the same language about the product and the use of plant protein in human diets.
Excellent, thank you. That's a difficult one. An experience of using whole beans in replacement of phaseolus beans? I'm not...
I don't know.
That's not one...
Yeah.
I'm afraid I don't think either of us could speak to that one.
No.
While I then have the opportunity, if there are no more questions at the moment, we always have this dilemma in terms of saying, is there a stigma to eating a soybean derived type products? And sometimes it's disguised and that's a very good way of actually getting the consumption of soy products increased, is if it's sort of hidden in these type of products that contain a lot of soya. In your opinion, do we need to go on a marketing campaign to improve the name of soya, or is that also an alternative, is to have it in mixtures where we're not necessarily declaring the percentage of soya that's going into the final product?
I think, in my personal opinion, it's a missed opportunity if you don't actually educate consumers on the use of soybeans and always try to hide it. I mean, it's got a lot of functional abilities and characteristics that makes it an ideal ingredient in something like breakfast cereals and so on. But I think there is really a good potential now to say, well, in the flexitarian diet, you know, we are eating a little bit of protein from different sources. Soybeans can also play a significant role.
Thank you.
Yeah, and maybe to add on to that, I agree. You know, there is a need for marketing around it. I think the perception around soy has been, unfortunately, a few decades ago, you know, we all know about toppers that came out, and those things were really horrible to eat. You know, so it was something that, and I think that created a perception in the market that soy is not really for human consumption, it's more an animal feed. But if you're looking at the nutritional values and you're looking at everything around it, it's ideally suited. It's actually one of the best grains and, you know, oil seeds that you can use for human consumption. So taking that forward and looking at what's happening international, you know, many of these products that's coming out there, soy is embedded in it, but it goes towards convenient foods. It's already a final product. I think that is where the development needs to happen here as well. Most of the products around here take some means of preparation. So it's a dry TVP product, so that needs to be soaked. You need to leave it for some time to soak it and then prepare and then do it. And looking at the convenience side of it, it's actually inconvenient to do it like that. And I think that is the problem where we're sitting with. And a lot of the development currently, and I think where we need to focus is, how can we take that processing just one step further into a final product? And I think that is really the opportunity that lies with soy. Then it means you take it from the shelf, it's ready to eat, it's ready to for consumption. And I think that is the opportunity out there, where if you're looking at there, it is mostly dry products. The products that are coming in are currently on the high-end market. So we're sitting now with high-end woolies and so on. Those products are being imported. So they're bringing in now from Europe these high-end products, which are now plant-based meat and plant-based products and so on. But I think the opportunity for us is to localize that, and then we will reap the benefit of that. And if we look at the cost of plant-based protein, it shouldn't be such a high-end market. Now, if you look at what you're paying currently for plant-based meat, you're paying more than for normal meat. But if you really start to look at the cost of the raw material, look at the processing cost, and you're looking at all the value additions there, effectively plant-based meat should cost about 60% of what meat is costing us, and not the other way around.
No, good. I think the whole concept of an affordable, good quality protein is definitely something that we need to work towards. So
Yeah.
you've hit spot on.
Yeah, and I think that is where soy gives us the opportunity for Africa. You know, if you're looking at many of the other developments around plant-based, and you go to the Beyond Burger, Beyond Meat, and so on, they're using pea isolates as the source of protein for those products. But if you're looking at the amount of pea protein in a pea, it's much lower than that also. So that's why those products are so extremely expensive. And I think it's not really suited for our region. So that's why if we're looking at using then soy, we can do similar with soy than what other people are doing with pea, and then we could come in at a much affordable price in the region for those type of products.
Great.
And
Thank you.
I also think, you know, that research and development in this particular field is really what is needed to understand our consumers, to understand, you know, what the middle and low income consumer would prefer in their products. Many of them have negative experiences because it's used in the school feeding program, but it's not used as a pure isolate. It's mixed with all sorts of goodies, and they don't like the flavor of it. So we have to optimize the recipes for the school feeding program as well, so that children can actually learn to like it from a very young age and continue to eat it into adulthood. And that's what we found with sardines, with tinned sardines. Since tinned sardines were introduced into the school feeding program once a week, we actually saw a rise in the use of tinned sardines when they became adults, because it's a convenience food that you just open the tin and you add it to whatever starch-based meal you are serving, and you have the benefit of that. So I think that is really an opportunity for the industry to take on, to see how can we better address these needs.
Well, thank you very much. I couldn't agree with you more.
And you're sitting with talking about the processing and the taste and the, a normal, if it's not properly processed, the soybeans, you have a very much a beanie flavor, a beanie taste. And people don't like that beanie taste. But having the right processing technology, you can actually reduce that beaniness. And the idea with the processing is to produce a product that is bland. Because the more bland you can get the product, you can then actually go towards chicken, towards fish, towards it with your flavoring. And that is so it's all about the technology that you use for processing. And traditionally, if you're looking at the TVP market that we know around here, they use single screw extruders. And single screw extruders don't have the capability to really break down that beaniness in the process. Where twin screw extrusion, from a technology point of view, has the capability of having better control, parameter control, because if you overcook slightly, you get a Maillard reaction, and that creates that beaniness that you're sitting with. You don't want that. But if you undercook one, you have so the control that you need needs to be so much better to actually do that. And that is where the technologies comes in to do it. And then taking it further, exactly as you mentioned on the canning side. Instead of having a product dry that somebody needs to go and produce and soak and prepare everything, the next step could be to take that product and put it in a can. And then suddenly you're buying a can of fish, or you're buying a can of meat-based meat, similar, already flavored, right? Because there is, if you make meat and you use exactly the same spices on beans, it doesn't taste exactly the same. So I think there's opportunity from processing point of view to actually educate our market by coming in with canned kind of plant-based products, because the canning is not a very expensive process. Yes, setting it up, but we have a lot of canning capabilities and facilities in the country. So taking that then forward and taking those products, then you're sitting with a finished product, literally opening up, and then it competes against your pilchards and all the other products.
Thank you. No, I think that was a very fruitful discussion and question and answer session. I think we probably can wrap it up at this stage.